Well, I was going to talk about something here. I was loading some stuff up today, and I happened to see a 351 video, and it got me thinking. I always have to explain that because bullets are hard to find for them. This is actually a size down 357 bullet. That's what I started using. But they're, I think, if I remember right, 165 grain or 160 grain. They're light for a 351. But they worked fine, and they were tumble lube. The problem is, of course, they're too big. You have to size them down, but that's where I modified a sizing die to bring them down to like the 353. This is the plated bullet that Graf sells. Now you can see on both of these bullets, they've both been fired. There's hardly any deformation on them at all. You know, they just stay the same. Well then, okay, this is the original. This is actually one of the Winchester original soft points. 180 grain with a very big soft point. I've only got a few of these. I really don't shoot them. Maybe sometime, but what I shoot almost always in the 351 is these cast bullets. What I did, this is 175 grain, but it's modified from the 200 grain bullet for the 35 Remington. All I did was modify the mold to take the whole gas check area out of there, so it's just the lube groove and the crimp groove. There's no area for a gas check. I didn't feel I needed a gas check, and it got me to the right size and the right weight, though it's 175, so it's still slightly lighter. And they are a flat nose bullet. Now, that's what I really like, and that's what I wanted to talk about, is flat nose bullets. Everybody gets all pumped up about the velocity. They want to use these really pointed bullets, including those rubber tip things. Get that little bit more velocity out of them. I don't really care about that. I can lose a little velocity. What I want is the impact that a flat nose will give you. It immediately mushrooms. This is one of these that mushrooms. This is from the 35 Remington, the standard bullet before I modified it. And you can see you get great mushrooming. They don't fragment. Even if they hit bone, they don't fragment. They just expand. They like double in size. Now, this is why I much prefer a flat-nosed lead bullet to a jacketed. Because this is what happens with a jacketed bullet. They just blow up. Particularly if you don't hit anything of any substance, they'll just go clean through. They won't expand at all. But if you hit anything with any resistance, they just blow up. It always brings me back to, there was a time where, some years they give out, like, I know people who had like 6 licenses, it was just crazy. But what people could do, because people wanted to hunt, so they'd hunt, and then they could donate these deer to like homeless shelters and food kitchens, this sort of thing. Well, they had to put a stop to that because they were finding so much of the meat had, they ran it through a scanner and it just lit up. I mean, your exploding bullets, your soft point bullets that when they get in there, they just blow a big hole. They scatter jacket and lead all through the meat. You destroy an awful lot of meat. With those, I have seen, like, I saw one time where somebody hit one with 30-06, and just, half of that deer was shot. And he hit it in the rear quarters. Now, if you hit it in the front quarters, that whole front end is just blown to nothing. You'll have fragments all through it. It'll just be a mess. I really don't believe in that high speed, small caliber, soft point bullets. I don't, they're fine if you're just trying to kill something, but if you're trying to save meat, they ain't going to do the trick. You know, it'd be different. You know, if the game is hunting you, well, yeah, okay, but you know, deer ain't shooting back. You really don't need that explosive type of ammunition. You know, I had somebody making a comment on a video because I used a 45-70 for hunting, and he said, "Oh, that's way overkill." It isn't. It isn't at all. I use those 405 grain flat nose bullets. They'll double in size, just like the 35 Remington will, just like any of the flat point bullets will. If you don't need a tremendous amount of velocity, but if you got enough power there, when they hit, that flat nose makes them want to just mushroom. It works. It couldn't work better. They mushroom, but they do not fragment, and that's what I want to see. I want to see them make a hole, drop the animal. None of that poking holes in them when they run off and die. That's where, you know, like I know people who, like a 223, they're going to hunt with a 223. Well, yeah, they end up poking a bunch of holes in them and they die, and I find them laying later. You know, 30-06 is usually the opposite. It just blows them apart. And I've seen where people are like, coyote runs. Well, they shoot the coyote. Well, it tears the coyote in half. You know, a lot of those, like say a 30-06, these were designed for military use with full metal jackets because somehow in, you know, people's theory this was more humane than, you know, the idea with a military jacket round isn't to kill, it's to wound and maim. The idea being that then it takes more people to take care of a wounded person. A dead person is done. A wounded person, the problem has just started. So that's their theory of being humane. Though, you know, they do all other kinds of, you know, napalm and everything else. Well, that's not inhumane. Okay. Anyway, that's where a lot of these, like the 30-06, the hunting rounds are derived from that. Now, in order to make it work, they have to make it expand. Well, legally, you can't hunt with full metal jackets anyway because you just poke holes in things and they die. You kill them, but you never find them. So they go to all these extremes to make these exploding, really, because that's exactly what they do, is they just explode. And yeah, it'll kill the animal, but makes a heck of a mess. Anyway, that's why I like a flat nose bullet that does exactly what I want it to do. That's why in this 351 I use that modified bullet. You know, my first thought was, well, maybe I'd have problems feeding because, you know, when they were designed, they had more of a rounded, and I thought, well, maybe it won't feed, but they feed perfectly. So I really like them. I'm not saying that's the way you have to go. Actually, the most reasonable way to go is with these plated bullets, but like I say, you get no expansion there. You know, maybe if you hit a bone, I don't know, there's very little deforming goes on there. But you get a good flat nose bullet. That does the job. Quickly and cleanly and economically.